Today is September 23rd, 2021, and today we have the privilege of doing a Living Legacies interview, I almost said it wrong, with Barb Stanley. So thank you, Barb, for agreeing to do this.
Well, I'm very honored to be here and being able to chat with you.
Good, thank you. I think we'll start with your youth. We'd like to know about where you were born, your family, and your early years.
Well, I was born in Marion, Indiana in 1950, and my father was finishing up seminary at the time, and actually they were finishing up college at the time, and then he went on to seminary. And I have lived in Marion, Indiana, Marion, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, Chicago, Illinois, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. This was when I was a young girl for second and third grade. And then Lamar's, Iowa, and then Reedsburg, Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and then back to Lamar's, Iowa. And then I was married.
My goodness.
My father was doing, like I said, college, then seminary, then worked on his master's degree when we were in Wisconsin, plus filling churches.
So that was at Madison, probably?
Madison, yes. And then filling churches also while he was commuting to Madison in Reedsburg and Milwaukee.
So were you born while your parents were in college?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, their last year of college.
That was kind of unusual, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Yes. So where did your dad go to seminary?
He went to seminary, just a minute, I know it as well as I know anything.
I'm trying to
In the
think.
United Methodist, it was in the Evangelical United Brethren Church in Naperville, Illinois.
Oh.
And the Evangelical United Brethren Church joined with the Methodist Church, I believe it was in 1967 or 68. I believe it was 1967. And that's where we get the United Methodist Church from.
So that unity formed, okay. So it was the Methodist Church and the United
And the
Brethren.
Evangelical United Brethren, or EUB.
I've not ever heard that before.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. The Sunnycrest United Methodist Church was the former Evangelical United Brethren Church.
And is that here in town?
That's here in town.
Oh.
Yeah. Sunnycrest is on 41st Street. And they used to be the Evangelical United Brethren Church that was on the corner of 22nd and Minnesota. It's now,
My goodness.
I think I used car lot or something. But when I lived here, I went to first, second, and third grade at Lowell School, and we lived next door to the Stanley family. And they became very close friends of my parents. They got my parents interested in camping, and we maintained the friendship all the time. Even when we lived up in Wisconsin, they would come up there and we would go on camping vacations together. And then when we moved to Lamar's, of course, we still stayed close friends. Sure. And let's see, I guess I'll stop there about that.
Are you the oldest in the family?
I'm the oldest. I have one sister, Carol, and she's 3 years younger than I am.
So she was born probably still
53.
in Illinois? Or?
No, she was born in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
She was born
My
in
goodness.
Columbus,
So have you
Ohio.
ever counted up all the places you've lived?
I really haven't,
No.
because I've lived a few since we've been married too. So.
Sure. So how many different schools were you in when you were a little kid?
Let's see, a few.
Yes. My goodness.
A few.
So what things do you remember about your family? What did you
I
do for fun?
had just the most wonderful childhood. My parents, I think we were very poor, but we never knew it.
Yep.
Never knew it. They tried to do family things all the time. I mean, we did family things together all the time. My dad, I just don't know where he got the energy, but he would play games with us, tiddlywinks, mousetrap.
Probably jacks.
My mom was the
okay.
one that liked to play jacks with us. We'd play hide and seek. If just the hours that we ran around the house with us playing hide and seek. And him chasing us, and we had so much fun. They always made sure that we had bikes, because we loved to ride bikes. When I was in 5th grade, I loved tetherball, and my dad, I remember, made me a tetherball using a tire and cement and the tetherball. It just seemed like somehow they were always able to scrape together the money to have something for us.
Yes.
Christmas, my mother was a wonderful seamstress. She made almost all of our clothes. She made all our doll clothes for us. We always had, whatever Easter dress we had, she made the same dress for our dolls.
Oh my
that we would have gotten for
goodness. And
Christmas.
would you and your sister have matching dresses?
Yes,
Yeah.
different colors, but
Oh,
matching dress.
Interesting.
We always got a new spring coat, I remember, and gloves and new shoes, and that'd be what we'd wear for our coats. When we got a little bit older, and I know especially when we lived in Milwaukee, they would always, once a month, we would try to have one really unique family outing. If it was like going to the zoo or to the botanical gardens, or if there was a unique building downtown, there was one that had a restaurant up at the top, we would go to that. But once a month, they'd try to have some unique outing for us. Remember one time when Camelot came out as a musical, they got us tickets to go to Camelot, and that was just wonderful. I mean, that was one of my favorite musicals at the time. So
many good memories.
Yeah, wonderful memories. We always took vacations, like I said, usually camping. Went different places to different campgrounds in Wisconsin, of course, beautiful state.
Yes.
We had relatives that lived in Canada, so we did go there. We came to South Dakota because of the Stanley family living here.
The Stanley family and the Stanley.
Right.
No, you're Stanley now.
Yeah, I'm Stanley now.
Okay.
And then also my mom's older sister and my cousins lived in South Dakota, so we often came to visit them.
Wow. So when you were little, do you remember knowing what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be an archaeologist.
What do you think?
I have no idea. There was something about the adventure. I always liked to play out in the dirt. I loved to make mud pies and play in the sand. I loved rocks.
Well.
I have no idea, but that was what I wanted to be when I was young, as an archaeologist.
And when did that change?
When I got into high school, what I really wanted to do was work with young people. This is going to sound very silly, but I thought it would be wonderful if I could be married to a millionaire and adopt 24 boys. I thought if we could foster young boys, that would be, can you imagine now being married to a millionaire and having 24 children just wouldn't cut it, would it?
I don't know which would be worse, actually.
Well, I don't think having $1 million now would probably go very far with 24 kids.
Oh, my.
But anyway, what do you want me to go on as far as?
Sure.
Well, when I finally decided what I wanted to do was, I got a summer job after I graduated from high school, and at the time my mother was working as director of nursing at the nursing home, Good Samaritan Nursing Home in Lamar's. And so I went there to work as a nurse's aide, which she just couldn't imagine me doing at the time. She just could not imagine me working as a nurse's aide. I fell in love with it. Just fell in love with working at the nursing home. I credit a lot of that with with one of the nurses' aides that worked there, Nina, who helped train me, because that was her profession. And I really credit her a lot with that. She trained me well, I feel. And I just fell in love with the people. And then I went to my first year at Westmark College, which was a church college in Lamar's at the time. And then I decided to go into nurses training. And so I went over they had 3-year programs at that time. And my mother had gone to Methodist School of Nursing in Mitchell, and I had one of Anne's aunts had gone there. And so I wanted to go there.
Yes.
And that's where I went for 3 more years then
And
after
when you
my...
reference Anne, you're talking about Anne
Ann
McGovern,
McGovern, yes.
who's your cousin.
Who's my
right?
cousin, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what kind of jobs have you had in the nursing field?
Well, I worked, the first place I worked was at Sioux Valley, here in Sioux Falls, when it was Sioux Valley, before Sanford, and it was
Yes.
before there were any additions on it. There was no air conditioning either. I worked on the orthopedic floor, and then worked there for a year, and then got married, and moved to, my husband was in the Navy, and he was stationed in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, and I worked in a small hospital there, and worked on the floor first, and then I moved into ICU, CCU combination that they had there. We had to move to Memphis, Tennessee for 6 months for him to go to a special school, and I worked on surgical floor. I also had a couple of what they called step-down units for
I don't know what that is.
cardiac patients who didn't have to be in coronary care but could come out on the floor. They still had monitors on, but we just watched them. And then we moved to, then we went to Japan. We were there for 4 years.
Because of the military
Because of the
service?
military. And we had already had our two boys. We went back to Jacksonville, after we finished those 6 months in Memphis.
Okay.
And both our boys were born in Jacksonville, one in 76 and one in 78. And then in 80, we moved to Japan, because my husband was, because of him being on sea duty at that time.
So did your boys become fluent in Japanese?
No,
No.
because you don't really have to in Japan.
Yeah, true.
You just don't have to in Japan. But after we'd been there, the last 2 years that we were there, I worked in an the oldest English-speaking school, Japanese school. And our youngest son went to 2 years school there in the Montessori program, preschool program, and our oldest son went to 1 year there,
Okay.
and second grade there.
And then what after Japan?
And then after Japan, we were stationed in California, Ridgecrest, California. It's a high desert area in California, and we absolutely loved it there, because in 45 minutes we could be up in the mountains in snow. In a little over an hour, we could be in Death Valley.
Oh my goodness. So I'd like to hear about your boys and
Yes, we have 2 boys. One of them has been married, and he has 3 children. Our youngest grandchild is 13, and our oldest is 26. And we have 3 great-grandchildren, 2 little girls, 6 and 3, and 1 little boy, 3 months old.
Oh, and they're all here, right?
Everyone is here.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our youngest son is not married, but he does have dogs, so we have granddogs for him.
So if you're not caring for grandchildren or great-grandchildren, do you take care of the dogs once in a while?
Well, occasionally.
Yeah.
Occasionally we have. And both of them are computer programmers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very, very savvy computer. And so is my husband, so I really lucked out.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Well, from the background that your father had to the merger of the churches, now you are a Lutheran. Tell me about that journey.
Well, my husband was raised in the Lutheran church.
So was he part of the Stanley family who were friends of yours?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So we've known each other a long time, since
Yes.
first grade.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, we kind of surprised everybody.
So were you married then in the Lutheran church, or?
No, we were married in the Methodist Church in Lamars,
Uh-huh.
United Methodist Church in Lamars, in 1973.
Okay.
So
And when did you and he move back to Sioux Falls?
we moved back in 1990. The boys and I came back in August of 1990,
Okay.
and so that they could start school.
Mhm.
We had, I forgot to tell you, we also were on Guam after California. The boys and I spent about a year and a half on Guam, but our youngest son started becoming borderline asthmatic due to allergies and so forth. So they really encouraged us. My husband was at 20 years by then. They really encouraged me to take him away from Guam. So we decided that he would retire. So the boys and I came back in August. He followed in December. And that's when we came back here. And David's folks belonged to the First Lutheran. That's where David had been raised, First Lutheran. And I was very impressed with the youth group at that time. It was a very active youth group, very active choir, children's choir, or youth choir.
Sure.
And so, and I had attended First Lutheran a lot throughout nurses training, because oftentimes on the weekend, instead of going all the way home to Lamar's, I would come to Sioux Falls. I had a lot of friends that went to Augustana, and of course David's folks were here, and I could always stay with them.
Yes.
And so I had attended First Lutheran many times over the years.
So that was a really good fit when your
It
children
was an
were
excellent
growing
fit,
up for
excellent
choir
fit,
and
yeah.
youth group.
Yep.
And from First Lutheran to
Well, that,
St.
if you
Mark's.
ask about challenges, I'll get into
okay,
that.
let's do that.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges in my life was when my parents were diagnosed with 2 terminal illnesses. My mother was diagnosed with, or my father was first diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and then about 4 months later, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Oh my.
And it was really a struggle for me to accept that 2 people whose lives had been dedicated to serving Christ and serving humanity
Yes.
could be struck down with these 2 terrible diseases. And I became very, very angry with God.
Yes.
I became very angry with God. They were members of First United Methodist Church, and so when it came to the point where my dad could no longer drive, and that it was safe for him to drive here in Sioux Falls, I started attending First United Methodist with them so that I could take them to church,
Yes.
and because they wanted to stay active in Sunday school. I had been very active in Stephen Ministry program at First Lutheran, but dropped out of that so that I could start attending church with them, taking them to church. So that went on for several years until they passed away. And my father was in assisted living. But it was a good 5 years that I wasn't attending any church. I realize now, to make a long story short, that probably that 5 years I had one of the closest relationships with God that I'd had up to that point. Because I don't think a day went by that I wasn't in communication with him.
Yes. Probably a lot of it was yelling.
A lot of it was yelling, a lot of it was why. But I did a lot of reading, I guess trying to find an answer to the why.
Yes.
I had very good, strong Christian friends who never gave up praying for me, never gave up taking me, being with me, even though they knew I was struggling. They didn't try to force anything with me. They just stayed my close, constant companions.
Just present with you.
Present with me. They were just present and never gave up their faith in that I would return to the church.
I remember when we talked about this once, you said one of the things that was so hard was that neither of your parents could take care of the other.
Right. That was one thing my mother said at one point, and kind of a low point for her was if just one of them
Yes.
had been diagnosed, then the other one could have taken care of the other one. But, so Ann McGovern invited me to a Blue Christmas that was held here.
Oh.
I can't remember just what year it was,
Yes.
but it was toward the end of this 5-year period when I was away from the church. And I just can't tell you how impressed I was with that service and with Pastor Lori. I don't know, that was just a big turning point. And I wish I was better at remembering dates. I've just gotten to the point where something I think was 2 months ago could have been 2 years ago, or vice versa. But I then started visiting St. Mark's, and it wasn't very long before I decided to join. And it's been about almost 3 years now, I think. I think it'll be 3 years in March, this coming March, that I've belonged here. And I just felt like this was home. I just feel like this is the most welcoming church. I feel like Pastor Lori is just, she preaches from the gospel. The fact that we have communion every Sunday, I just feel like, and the fact that this church is open to anyone and everyone, it's just...
So is the Blue Christmas service still one of your favorites?
Oh, yes.
Yes, I would think
Yes,
so.
yes, it is. It is. It's such a healing service. Such a healing service. Anyway, I would say that covers... Another big challenge for me was when we moved to Japan with 2 little boys.
Oh.
And David had to go right out on ship.
Oh, my.
But I feel like that was really a growth time for me, because after that, I felt like I could do just about anything.
I'll bet. Were you on a base while you were in Japan?
When we first got there, we lived in sort of a hotel type, or small apartment type, or suite, I guess you would call it, because it had a little kitchenette and 2 bedrooms for a while. And then we realized that it was going to be a while before we could get into base housing, so I had to find a Japanese house
Oh, my goodness.
to live in. So that meant I had to learn to drive a car in Japan right away.
And did you sleep on those tatami mats?
No,
on the
we
floor?
were able to, they moved our furniture in.
Oh, okay.
The furniture that we could get into this little house, so we had our own beds, but we had to heat it with, it was in the winter, and we had to heat it with kerosene
Oh, my.
heaters. So I had to get those filled with kerosene, and then I'd have to carry them across the street and up to the house. And
Wow.
yeah, it was something. But
it sort of built confidence, did it?
yes, it definitely built confidence. Oh yeah, I felt like, boy, if I can do this, I can do anything.
So I've heard about now how you found St. Mark's, which is a wonderful story. Do you have a favorite scripture?
I do.
Uh-huh.
Proverbs, oh gosh, am I going to say the wrong one? Proverbs, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto the understanding, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Is it 3 verses 4 and 5?
I don't know.
I think so.
I'm going to go home and look it up.
I think it's Proverbs.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart.
Lean not unto your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths.
Oh, that's really beautiful.
Yeah, I love the book. Lean not unto your own understanding.
Yes, and he will direct your path.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really...
And
I don't
then-
think I've ever heard anybody quote that before.
I've got that on a lot of things. I have it on a pillow, I have it on a magnet. I have it
Yes.
on, because that's my prayer, my contemplative prayer mantra too. Trust in the Lord, trust in the Lord, trust in the Lord.
That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Yes.
And then I would say my other one is be still and know that I'm God.
Yes.
Psalm
In the book that we're
46.
reading in book club, that was a mantra that someone did
yes,
with
it
a
was.
person who was with ALS, right?
Yes,
And couldn't speak anymore.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 That's one that I need to keep thinking about, because it's be still and know that I am God, and then it's be still and know, and then be still, and then just be.
Yeah, I really appreciated that.
For sure.
One of my dad's favorite sermons was on be still, know that I am God. So I think that's why that's such a profound one for me.
Sure. Well, you've done a lot of traveling in your life, obviously,
Yeah.
because of your husband's career. Do you have a favorite travel memory?
Yes, when we were in Japan, we went to the Philippines for 30 days, and they had at the time, the Navy owned a little island called Grande Island, and they had like a hotel on it, but they also had little houses around it. You could rent those. They're quite inexpensive. And the two boys and David and I went and spent 30 days, and you had there was a telephone that could reach the hotel, but it wasn't, not like you could call anyone. It just was to leave you connected to the hotel. Mm-hmm. No radio, no TV. So one suitcase that we brought, all we had in it were games and books and things. And it was a wonderful, wonderful family bonding time.
So you tried to do for your boys what your family had done for you as far as games and books and family-centered things.
Right. And then when we lived in California, we bought a pickup camper.
Oh.
And we took, every weekend we would try to either go to Death Valley or up into the mountains. And
was it one of those with the kind of the bed over the top?
Yeah, the bed over the top. Yeah, it had a little shower in it. And,
yes.
And it, enough to make Mom feel comfortable.
Right.
The boys slept in a little tent outside. Mom and Dad slept in the camper.
So is there a best gift that you've received, something you remember?
Well, I thought long and hard about this, and I would say that the two best gifts I received are my boys.
Wonderful.
I can't really think of.
Yes.
And my grandchildren. I can't think of anything really monetary, or I've gotten some wonderful letters from my dad over the years that I've kept, and from my mom, and I've kept ones from my grandmother and my aunts, but letters, things like that. But,
so how have you preserved those?
Oh, I have what's called a joy box that we made when I was in Stephen ministry. And I just keep precious things in that.
Tell me a little about, I've not heard of a joy box.
Oh, well it's just like, kind of like a Tupperware thing, about that big and about that high. And we just decorated them with markers or whatever. We were at a Stephen ministry retreat. It's just called our joy box, and things that bring us joy, put in it.
So probably you still add things?
Oh, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
That's very interesting.
I'm very selective about what I put in it. But.
And do you share it with grandchildren?
I haven't yet.
Not yet, no.
No, not yet.
Well, you talked about, I think her name was Nina.
Yeah.
Who trained you, excuse me, when you were in the beginning nursing. Are there other people who've had a big influence on
I
your
would
life?
say the two people that have had the most profound effect on my life are my parents.
Yes.
By far. By far.
Both with how they lived.
Well, how they lived,
And
their marriage, their kindness, their gentleness, their compassion, their acceptance of everyone. My sister and I were talking the other day. I thought it was interesting, especially with our work on the reconciling in Christ, that we don't, I guess we shouldn't say we just feel like we have no prejudices, because we probably do. We're not perfect.
Right.
But we just don't, and we put that all down to our parents.
Yes.
Because being, like Carol said, don't you remember all the missionaries that would come and stay with us when we were in Sioux Falls? And did you ever think of them as black or Asian? And I said, I don't remember, Carol. And she said, well, I remember one little girl that I loved to play with when they came. And a few years after that, something came up about them, and Mom says, well, Carol, didn't you realize that they were black? That was a little black girl? She said, no, Mom, I never knew.
I just liked it, right?
And I said, well, I don't remember at all.
So a lot of that comes from parents, doesn't
I think it does. I think it does.
Yeah.
Outside influence.
Yes.
But so they're the ones that have had the people that I would most like to emulate.
Yes.
As far as character.
Well, is there anything about you that most people don't know that you're willing to share?
I think probably the fact that I'm more shy than I think some people realize.
That's
that I really have to work at being outgoing. But I give my mother a lot of credit for that, because she told me about taking deep breaths and trying to look people in the eye when you talk to them, and you'll feel more comfortable.
Interesting. So she saw in you that.
Yeah, and I think she had some of that same
Mm-hmm.
problem, if you want to call it a problem or whatever.
Yeah.
But, and then the fact that I like to be alone as much as I really do. I would love to even spend more time alone than I do. And my favorite place to be alone is out in the Black Hills.
Really?
Yes.
You like to walk, or?
I love to walk.
Uh-huh.
Also, there's a cabin that we like to stay in out there that a couple who belongs to the South Dakota Arts Council owns. It's just the one building on their property that they rent out. And we've gone there off and on for many times over the years. And in fact, we're going out the end of October again, and I'm sitting on their front porch. And you look down a valley, the mountains. It's just
time to think and meditate and.
yeah. When you do like visual meditation and go to your favorite place,
Yeah.
that's my favorite place
That
I go
is.
to.
Do they know that? Have you
Yeah,
told?
yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, how about any words of wisdom that you would have?
Oh, my goodness.
Something that you've learned or something that's been helpful to you?
Well, I think be true to yourself. One of my mom's words of wisdom is, to thine own self be true. I think if you're comfortable in yourself, you're going to make other people comfortable. And if you're true to yourself, people will pick up on that.
Yes.
They will be able to trust you.
They'll think you're authentic.
Authentic.
Yes.
So I guess that's the best thing that can come to mind right now.
Yes, for sure. And I noticed that you brought a picture along.
I did.
Good.
These are my parents, and I love this picture because they're smiling, and it's so big, and we've been playing a game, a card game,
Yes.
and this is just them to a T.
Wonderful.
Yes.
It shows them happy and it shows
Yes,
them.
and healthy.
Yes.
Happy
yes.
and healthy. So,
This has been wonderful. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well,
Thank you
thank you.
very much. Yes. Anything you want to say in closing?
well, I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you and Dick.
Thank
Both.
you. Thank you. Yeah, we joined, I think, St. Mark's at about the same time.
Oh,
so
okay.
I think it was 2 years ago in May, so
Oh, okay.
fairly
Same.
recently as well.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for today. It's been wonderful.
Been wonderful for me also.
Okay.